Chapter 9 Love and Its Consequences. I didn't want to question you in front of them. Their faith is overwhelming, explained Shiva with a wry grin. He was beginning to like Brihaspati. He enjoyed being around a man who treated him like an equal. Brihaspati nodded. I understand, my friend. What do you want to ask? Why me? Asked Shiva. Why did the Somras have this strange effect on me? I might have a blue throat, but I don't know how I'm going to become the savior of the Suryavanshis. The emperor tells me that I am supposed to be the one who will complete Lord Rama's unfinished work and destroy the Suryavanshis. He told you that? Asked Brihaspati, his eyes wide with surprise. The emperor can be a little tiresome at times, but suffice it to say that what he told you is not completely correct. The legend doesn't exactly say that the Nilkant will save the Suryavanshis. The legend say two things. First, that the Nilkant will not be from the Saptasindhu. And second, the Nilkant will be the destroyer of evil. The Meluhans believe that this implies that the Nilkant will destroy the Chandravanshis since they are obviously evil. But destroying the Chandravanshis doesn't mean that the Suryavanshis will be saved. There are many other problems besides the Chandravanshis that we need to solve. What kind of problems? Like the Nagas? Brihaspati seemed to hesitate for a moment. He replied carefully, there are many problems. We are working hard to solve them, but coming back to your question, why did the Somras have this effect on you? Yes, why did it? Why did my throat turns blue? Leave alone stopping the degeneration of my body. The Somras actually repaired a dislocated shoulder and a frostbitten toe. It repaired an injury? Asked an incredulous Brihaspati. That's impossible. It is just supposed to prevent diseases and aging, not repair injuries. Well, it did in my case. Brihaspati thought for a bit. We will have to do experiments to come up with a definitive answer. For now, though, I can think of only one explanation. I have been told that you come from the highlands beyond the Himalayas, right? Shiva nodded. The air gets thicker as you go higher up the mountains, continued Brihaspati. There is less oxygen in thinner air. That means your body was used to surviving with less oxygen and resultantly was less harmed by the oxidants. Therefore, the antioxidants in the Somras may have had a stronger effect on you. That could be one of the reasons, agreed Shiva. But if that was the case, then the necks of all my tribesmen should also have turned cold and blue. Why just me? A good point, conceded Brihaspati. But tell me one thing. Did your tribe also experience an improvement in their pre-existing conditions? Actually, yes, they did. So maybe the diluted air you all lived in did have some role to play. But since your entire tribe did not develop blue throats, it is obvious that the thinner air theory may be a partial explanation. We can also do some more research. I am sure there is a scientific explanation for the blue throat. Shiva's piercing look revealed that he had read the intent behind Brihaspati's last sentence. You don't believe in the legend of the Nilkant, do you? Brihaspati smiled at Shiva awkwardly. He was beginning to like Shiva and did not want to say anything to insult him. But he wasn't going to lie either. I believe in science. It provides a solution and a rationale for everything, and if there is anything that appears like a miracle, the only explanation is that a scientific reason for it has not been discovered as yet. Then why do the people of Meluha not turn to science for solving their problems? I'm not sure, said Brihaspati thoughtfully. Perhaps it is because science is a capable but cold hearted master. Unlike a Nilkant, it will not solve your problems for you. It will only provide you with the tools that you may need to fight your own battles. Most people find it easier to wait for the arrival of the Messiah rather than act to solve their own problems. So, what do you think is the role that the Nilkant has to play in Meluha? Brihaspati looked at Shiva sympathetically. I would like to think that true Suryavanshis should fight their own demons rather than put pressure on someone else and expect him to solve their problems. A true Suryavanshis duty is to push himself to the limit of his abilities and strength. The coming of the Nilkant should only redouble a Suryavanshi's efforts, since it is obvious that the time for the destruction of evil is near. Shiva nodded. Are you concerned that it may be too much of a strain for you to take up a responsibility that you don't really want because of the pressure of faith? Asked Brihaspati. No, that is not my concern, replied Shiva. This is a wonderful country and I certainly want to do all I can to help. But what if your people depend on me to protect them? And I can't. Right now, I can't say that I can do all that is expected of me. So, how can I give my words? Brihaspati smiled. According to his rule book, any man who took his own word so seriously was deserving of respect. You appear to be a good man, Shiva. You will probably face a lot of pressure in the coming days. Be careful, my friend, because of the blue throat and the blind faith it generates. Your decisions will have ramifications for the entire land. Remember, whether a man is a legend or not is decided by history, not fortune tellers. Shiva smiled, glad to have finally found a man who understood his predicament and, more importantly, was willing to at least offer some advice. It was late in the evening. Having spent a thoroughly enjoyable afternoon on a detailed tour of Mount Mandar with Brihaspati, Shiva lay on his bed reading a book. A spent chillum lay on the side table. A few aspects of the story he was reading, the righteous war against the Asuras, troubled him. The Asuras were demons and were expected to behave like demons who had a pathological hatred for the Devas. They routinely attacked Deva cities, trying to force them to accept the Asura way of life. This was not a surprise to Shiva. What he had not expected, though, were the unusually unethical means the Devas sometimes adopted in the pursuit of victory. Lord Rudra, though personally a great man, seemed to ignore the indiscretions of the Devas in the interest of the larger good. Shiva heard a commotion outside the guest house. He looked out of his first floor balcony and noticed that the royal caravan had just arrived. The Aristonemi soldiers quickly lined up for the traditional salute. Some people appeared to be disembarking from the far side of the second carriage. Even though they appeared to be the royal family, Shiva noted the absence of servitude and pageantry on the part of the Aristonemi. Shiva suspected that this could be due to the usual Meluhan obsession with perceived equality. However, Shiva's equality theory was challenged when he looked at the fifth carriage from which Parvateshwar alighted. Here the Aristonemi seemed to be in a tizzy. The senior captain rushed in front of Parvateshwar and executed a Meluhan military salute. A quick click of the heels, the body rigid in attention, and the right hand balled into a fist, brought rapidly and violently to his left chest. The salute was followed by a deep bow of respect to the commander of the army. The soldiers at the back repeated their captain's greeting. Parvateshwar formally saluted in return. Accompanied with a slight bow of his head, he started towards his soldiers, inspecting them while the captain politely fell 2 steps behind. Shiva had a feeling that the administration reserved for Parvateshwar was not because of the post he held. It was for the man himself. For all his sirloins, Parvateshwar had the reputation of a brave warrior, a soldier's general respected as a man who was true to his word. Shiva could see the strength of that repute in the eyes of each Arishtanemi who bent low on receiving the attention of his journal. A little while later, Shiva heard a soft knock on his door. He did not need to guess who waited on the other side. Sighing softly, he opened the door. Daksha's fixed smile disappeared and he started a little as the unfamiliar odor of marijuana assaulted his senses. Kanakala, standing to the emperor's right, appeared equally perplexed. "What is that stench?" Daksha asked Brihaspati, who stood to the left. "Perhaps you should change the Lord's room. How can you subject him to this discomfort?" "I have a feeling that Shiva is comfortable with this aroma, Your Highness," said Brihaspati. "It is a smell that travels with me, Your Highness," said Shiva. "I like it." Daksha was baffled. His face did nothing to hide his revulsion, but he quickly recovered his composure. After all, the Lord was happy with the malodor. "I'm sorry to disturb you, my lord," said Daksha, his smile back in place. "I just thought I would inform you that my family and I have reached the guest house." "It's very kind of you to inform me, Your Highness," said Shiva with a formal namaste. "My family and I were hoping for the honor of having breakfast with you tomorrow morning, my lord." "The honor would be mine, Your Highness." "Excellent, excellent," beamed Daksha as he moved on to the question that dominated his mind. "What do you think of the Somras, my lord? Isn't it really the drink of the gods?" "Yes, Your Highness, it does appear to be a miraculous drink. It is the basic of our civilization," continued Daksha. "Once you have taken a tour of our land, you will see the goodness of our way of life. I am sure you will find it in your heart to do something to save it." "Your Highness, I already think highly of your country. It truly is great and treats its citizens well. I wouldn't doubt that it is a way of life that is worth protecting. However, what I am not sure about is what I can do. Yours is such an advanced civilization and I am just a simple tribal man." "Faith is a very potent weapon, my lord," said Daksha, his hands joined in supplication. "All that is needed is for you to have as much faith in yourself as we have in you. I am sure that if you spend a few more days in our country and see the effect that your presence has on our people, you will realize what you can do." Shiva gave up arguing against Daksha's childlike belief. Brihaspati winked at Shiva before coming to his rescue. "Your Highness, Shiva looks tired to me. It has been a long day. Maybe he should retire and we could meet tomorrow?" Daksha smiled. "Perhaps you are right, Brihaspati. My apologies for troubling you, my lord. We will see you at breakfast. Have a good night." "Good night," wished Shiva in return. Sati waited quietly at the table as Daksha glanced nervously at the prahar lamp. To the left were Kanakala, Brihaspati and Parvateshwar. To his right was an empty chair for the Neelkant, thought Sati. Next to the empty chair sat Sati and to her right was her mother Virini. Daksha had agonized deeply over the sitting to get it exactly right. Sati looked over the arrangements, a formal table and chairs for breakfast rather than the preferred low table and floor cushions that Meluhans normally sat upon to eat. The beloved banana leaf had been replaced by gold plates. The taste enhancing kulhars or mud cups had been replaced by refined silver glasses. She thought that her father was really pulling out all stops for this breakfast meeting. She had seen him pin his hopes on too many so called Nilkants earlier. Miracle men who had turned out to be a frauds. She hoped that her father would not have the face disillusionment once again. The courier announced Shiva and Nandi as Daksha rose with a reverential namaste to receive the Lord. Parvateshwar rolled his eyes at the servile behavior of his emperor. At the same instant, Sati bent down to pick up a glass that she had accidentally knocked over. "My lord," said Daksha, pointing to the people standing around the table. "Kanakala, Brahaspati, and Parvateshwar, you already know. At the far right in my wife, Queen Virini." Shiva smiled politely as he returned Virini's namaste with a formal namaste and a low bow. "And next to her," said Daksha with a broad smile as Sati came up holding the glass she had retrieved, "is my daughter Princess Sati." The breath went out of Shiva as he looked at his life staring back at him. His heart beat a frantic rhythm. He could swear that he had got a whiff of his favorite fragrance in the world, the aroma of the holy lake at sunset. As before, he was mesmerized. There was an uncomfortable silence in the room, except for the noise made by the unfortunate glass which fell from Sati's hand again. The clang of the rolling glass distracted Sati slightly from her fixed gaze. With superhuman effort, she managed to control the look of shock on her face. She was breathing heavily as if she had just danced a duet with Shiva. What she did not know was that her soul was doing exactly that. Daksha gazed at the dumbstruck couple with glee. He had the look of a director who had just seen his play being perfectly executed. Nandi, standing right behind Shiva, could see Sati's expression. Suddenly, everything became clear to him. The dance practices, the Vikrama touch, the Shuddhikaran, and his lord's anguish. While some part of him was afraid, another reconciled to it quickly. If his lord wanted this, he would support it in every way possible. Brahaspati stared blankly at the couple, deep in thought about the implications of this unexpected situation. Parvateshwar looked at the goings on with barely concealed repugnance. What was happening was wrong, immoral, and worst of all, illegal. "My lord," said Daksha, pointing towards the empty seat at his right, "please take your seat and we shall begin." Shiva did not react. He had not heard Daksha's words. He was in a world where the only sound was the harmonious melody of Sati's heavy breathing, a tune he could blissfully dance to for his next 7 lives. "My lord," repeated Daksha a little louder. A distracted Shiva finally looked at Daksha as if from another world. "Please take your seat, my lord," said Daksha. "Yes, of course, your highness," said Shiva, averting his eyes in embarrassment. As Shiva sat down, the food was brought in. It was a simple delicacy that the Meluhans looked for breakfast. Rice and some cereals were fermented and ground into a thick batter. Small portions of this batter were then wrapped in banana leaves and steamed into cylindrical roundels. It was served while still draped in the banana leaf, along with some spicy lentils for taste. The dish was called an idli. "You are the Nilkant?" A still shocked Sati whispered softly to Shiva as she was willed some calmness into her breathing. "Apparently so," replied Shiva with a playful grin. "Impressed?" Sati answered that question with a raised disdainful brow. The mask was back. Why would I be impressed? What? My lord, said Daksha. Yes, your highness, said Shiva, turning towards Daksha. I was thinking, said Daksha, our puja should be over by this evening. However, I have to stay here for 2 more days for some reviews with Brihaspati. There is no point in Virini and Sati getting thoroughly bored out here in the meantime. Thank you, Your Highness, said Brihaspati with a sly grin. Your vote of confidence in the interest that the royal family has in Mount Mandar is most reassuring. The entire table burst out laughing. So did Daksha, exhibiting a sporting spirit. You know what I mean, Brihaspati, said Daksha, shaking his head. Turning back to Shiva, he continued. From what I am led to believe, my lord, you were planning to leave for Devagiri tomorrow morning. I think it may be a good idea for Virini and Sati to accompany you. The rest of us can catch up with you 2 days later. Sati looked up in alarm. She wasn't sure why, but something told her that she should not agree to this plan. Another part of her said that she had no reason to be scared. In all the 85 years that she had spent as a Vikrama, she had never broken the law. She had the self-control to know what was right and what wasn't. Shiva, though, had no such compunctions. With very obvious delight, he said, I think that is a very good idea, Your Highness. Nandi and I could travel with both Her Highnesses back to Devagiri. It's settled then, said a visibly content Daksha. Turning to Parvateshwar, he said, Parvateshwar, please ensure that the Arishtanemi escort are broken up into 2 groups for the return journey. My lord, I don't think that is wise, said Parvateshwar. A large part of the Arishtanemi are still in Devagiri preparing for the material transfer. Also, the standing contingent in Mount Mandar cannot be reduced under any circumstances. We may not have enough soldiers for 2 caravans. Perhaps we could all travel together day after tomorrow. I'm sure there won't be a problem, said Daksha. And don't you always say that each Arashtanemi is equal to 50 enemy soldiers? It's settled. The Lord Nilkant, Virini and Sati will leave tomorrow morning. Please make all the arrangements. Parvateshwar went unhappily back to his thoughts as Shiva and Sati stared whispering to each other again. You did go for a Shuddhikaran, didn't you? Asked Sati seriously. Yes, said Shiva. He wasn't lying. He had gone for a purification ceremony on his last night at Devagiri. He didn't believe he needed it. However, he knew that Sati would ask him the next time they met, and he didn't want to lie to her. Though I think the idea of doing a Shuddhikaran is completely absurd, whispered Shiva. In fact, the entire concept of the Vikrama is ridiculous. I think it is one of the few things in Meluha that is not fair and should be changed. Sati looked up suddenly at Shiva, her face devoid of any expression. Shiva stared hard into her eyes, trying to gauge some of the thoughts running through her mind. But he hit a blank wall. It was the beginning of the second Prahar, the next day when Shiva, Virini, Sati and Nandi departed for Devagiri along with 100 Arishtanemi. Daksha, Parvateshwar and Kanakala stood outside the guest house to see them off. Brihaspati had been detained by some scheduled experiments. The entourage had to sit in the same carriage as there were guidelines that a minimum of 4 carriages had to be kept aside for any caravan that carried the emperor. since the royal procession had come in 5 carriages that left only one carriage for this caravan. Parvateshwar was deeply unhappy about the unorthodox way in which members of the royal family were traveling without any dummy carriages, but his objections had been overruled by Daksha. Sitting on one of the comfortable sofas inside the carriage, Sati noticed that Shiva was wearing his cravat again. Why do you cover your throat all the time? I'm uncomfortable with all the attention that comes along with anyone seeing the blue throat, replied Shiva. But you will have to get used to it. The blue throat is not going to disappear. True, answered Shiva with a smile. But till I get used to it, the Karavat is my shield. As the caravan left, Parvateshwar and Kanakala came up to Daksha. Why do you have so much faith in that man, my lord? Asked Parvateshwar of Daksha. He has done nothing to deserve respect. How can he lead us to victory when he has not even been trained for it? The entire concept of the Nilkant goes against our rules. In Meluha, a person is supposed to be given a task only if he is found capable of it and is trained by the system. We are in a state of war, Parvateshwar, replied Daksha. An undeclared one, but a state of war all the same. We face a terrorist attack every other week. These cowardly Chandravanshis don't even attack from the front so that we can fight them. And our army is too small to attack their territory openly. Our rules are not working. We need a miracle. And the first rule of serendipity is that miracles come when we forget rational laws and have faith. I have faith in the Nilkant, and so do my people. But Shiva has no faith in himself. How can you force him to be our savior when he himself doesn't want to be one? Sati will change that. My lord, you are going to use your own daughter as bait? Asked a horrified Parvateshwar. And do you really want a savior who decide to help us just because of his lust? It is not lust. Parvateshwar and Kanakala kept quiet, shocked by Daksha's reaction. What kind of a father do you think I am? Asked Daksha. You think I will use my daughter so? She just may find comfort and happiness with the Lord. She has suffered enough already. I want her to be happy, and if in doing so I help my country as well, what is the harm? Parvateshwar was about to say something but thought the better of it. We need to destroy the Chandravanshi ideology, continued Daksha, and the only way we can do that is if we can give the benefits of our lifestyle to the people of Swadweep. The common Swadweepans will be grateful for this, but their Chandravanshi rulers will try everything within their power to stop us. They may be able to resist us, but try as they might, they cannot stop a people led by the Nilkant. And if Sati is with the Nilkant, there is no way he would refuse to lead us against the Chandravanshis. But your highness, do you really think the Lord would come to our side just because he is in love with your daughter? Asked Kanakala. You have missed the point. The Lord does not need to be convinced to be on our side, said Daksha. He already is. We are a great civilization. Maybe not perfect, but great all the same. One has to be blind to not see that. What the Nilkant need is motivation and the belief in himself to lead us. That belief in himself will emerge when he gets closer to Sati. And how is that going to happen, your highness? Asked Parvateshwar, frowning slightly. Do you know what is the most powerful force in a man's life? Asked Daksha. Kanakala and Parvateshwar looked at Daksha, nonplussed. It is his intense desire to impress the person he loves the most, expounded Daksha. Look at me. I have always loved my father. My desire to impress him is what is driving me even today. Even after his death, I still want to make him proud of me. It is driving me to my destiny as the king who will re-establish the pure Suryavanshi way of life across India. And when the Nilkant develops a deep desire to make Sati proud of him, he will rise to fulfill his destiny. Parvateshwar frowned, not quite agreeing with the logic, but keeping quiet all the same. But what if Sati seeks something different? Asked Kanakala, like a husband who spends all his time with her. I know my daughter, replied Daksha confidently. I know what it takes to impress her. That's an interesting point of view, my lord, smiled Kanakala. Just out of curiosity, what do you think is the most powerful force in a woman's life? Daksha laughed out loud. Why do you ask? Don't you know? Well, the most powerful force in my life is the desire to get out of the house before my mother in law wakes up. Both Daksha and Kanakala guffawed loudly. Parvateshwar didn't seem to find it funny. I'm sorry, but that is no way to speak about your mother in law. Oh, relax, Parvateshwar, said Kanakala. You take everything too seriously. I think, said Daksha smiling, the most powerful force in a woman's life is the need to be appreciated, loved, and cherished for what she is. Kanakala smiled and nodded. Her emperor truly understood human emotions.